Chapter 4. We slog back to the train in silence. In the hallway outside my door, Hamish gives my shoulder a pat and says, "You could do a lot worse, you know." He heads off to his compartment, taking the smell of wine with him. In my room, I remove my sodden slippers, my wet robe, and pajamas. There are more in the drawers, but I just crawl between the covers of my bed and my underclothes. I stare into the darkness, thinking about my conversation with Hamish. Everything he said was true about the capital's expectations, my future with PETA, even his last comment. Of course I could do a lot worse than PETA, but that isn't really the point, though, is it? One of the few freedoms we have in District 12 is the right to marry who we want or not to marry at all, and now even that has been taken away from me. I wonder if President Snow will insist we have children. If we do, they'll have to face the reaping each year. And wouldn't it be something to see the child of not one, but two victors chosen for the arena? Victors as children have been in the ring before, and it always causes a lot of excitement and generates talk about how the odds are not in that family's favor. But it happens too frequently to be just about odds. Gail's convinced that the Capitol does it on purpose, rigs the drawings to add extra drama. Given all the trouble I've caused, I've probably guaranteed any child of mine a spot in the games. I think of Hamish, unmarried, no family, blotting out the world with drink. He could have had his choice of any woman in the district, and he chose solitude. Not solitude. That sounds too peaceful. More like solitary confinement. Was it because, having been in the arena, he knew it was better than risking the alternative? I had a taste of that alternative when they called Prim's name on Reaping Day, and I watched her walk to the stage to her death. But as her sister, I could take her place, an option forbidden to our mother. My mind searches frantically for a way out. I can't let President Snow condemn me to this, even if it means taking my own life. Before that, though, I'd try to run away. What would they do if I simply vanished? Disappeared into the woods and never came out? Could I even manage to take everyone I love with me? Start a new life deep in the wild? Highly unlikely, but not impossible. I shake my head to clear it. This is not a time to be making wild escape plans. I must focus on the victory tour. Too many people's fates depend on my giving a good show. Dawn comes before sleep does, and there's Effie Trinket rapping on my door. I pull on whatever clothes are at the top of the drawer and drag myself down to the dining car. I don't see what difference it makes when I get up, since this is a travel day. But then it turns out that yesterday's makeover was just to get me to the train station. Today I'll get the works from my prep team. Why? It's too cold for anything to show, I grumble. Not in District 11, says Effie. District 11, our first stop. I'd rather start in any other district, since this was Rue's home. But that's not how the victory tour works. Usually it kicks off in 12 and then goes in descending district order to 1, followed by the capital. The victor's district is skipped and saved for the very last. Since 12 puts on the least fabulous celebration, usually just a dinner for the tributes and a victory rally in the square where nobody looks like they're having any fun, it's probably best to get us out of the way as soon as possible. This year, for the first time since Hamish won, the first stop on the tour will be 12, and the capital will spring for the festivities. I try to enjoy the food like Hazel said. The kitchen staff clearly wants to please me. They've prepared my favorite, lamb stew with dried plums, along with other delicacies. Orange juice and a pot of steaming hot chocolate wait at my place at the table. So I ate a lot, and the meal is beyond reproach, but I can't say I'm enjoying it. I'm also annoyed that no one but Effie and me has shown up. Where's everybody else? I ask. Oh, who knows where Hamish is, says Effie, although I didn't really expect Hamish because he's probably just getting to bed. Cinna was up late working on organizing your garment car. He must have over 100 outfits for you. Your evening clothes are exquisite. And PETA's team is probably still asleep. Doesn't he need prepping? I ask. Not the way you do, Effie replies. What does this mean? It means I get to spend the morning having hair ripped off my body while PETA sleeps in. I hadn't given it much thought, but in the arena at least some of the boys got to keep their body hair, whereas none of the girls did. I can remember PETA's now, as I bathed him by the stream. Very blonde in the sunlight, once the mud and blood had been washed away. Only his face remained completely smooth. Not one of the boys grew a beard, and many were old enough to. I wonder what they did to them. If I feel ragged, my prep team seems in worse condition, knocking back coffee and sharing brightly colored little pills. As far as I can tell, they never get up before noon unless there's some sort of national emergency like my leg hair. I was so happy when it grew back in, too, as if it was a sign that things might be returning to normal. I run my fingers along the soft, curly down my legs and give myself over to the team. None of them are up to their usual chatter, so I can hear every strand being yanked from its follicle. I have to soak in a tub of a thick, unpleasant-smelling solution, while my face and hair are plastered with creams. 2 more baths follow in other less offensive concoctions. I'm plucked and scoured, and massaged and anointed until I'm raw. Flavius tilts up my chin and sighs. It's a shame Cinna said no alterations on you. Yes, we could really make you something special, says Octavia. When she's older, says Venya, almost grimly, then he'll have to let us. Do what? Blow my lips like President Snow's? Tattoo my breasts? Dye my skin magenta and implant gems into it? Cut decorative patterns in my face? Give me curved talons or cat whiskers? I saw all those things and more on people in the capital. Do they really have no idea how freakish they look to the rest of us? The thought of being left to my prep team's fashion whims only adds to the miseries competing for my attention. My abused body, my lack of sleep, my mandatory marriage, and the terror of being unable to satisfy President Snow's demands. By the time I reach lunch, where Effie, Cinna, Portia, Haymitch, and Peeta have started without me, I'm too weighed down to talk. They're raving about the food and how well they all sleep on trains. Everyone's all full of excitement about the tour. Well, everyone except Haymitch. He's nursing a hangover and picking at a muffin. I'm not really hungry either. Maybe because I'm loaded up on too much rich stuff this morning, or maybe because I'm so unhappy. I play around with a bowl of broth, eating only a spoonful or 2. I can't even look at Peeta, my designated future husband, although I know none of this is his fault. People notice, try to bring me into the conversation, but I just brush them off. At some point, the train stops. Our server reports it will not just be for a fuel stop. Some part has malfunctioned and must be replaced. It will require at least an hour. This sends Effie into a state. She pulls out her schedule and begins to work out how this delay will impact every event for the rest of our lives. Finally, I just can't stand to listen to her anymore. No one cares, Effie! I snap. Everyone at the table stares at me, even Haymitch, who you'd think would be on my side in this matter since Effie drives him nuts. I'm immediately put on the defensive. Well, no one does, I say, and get up to leave the dining car. The train suddenly seems stifling, and I'm definitely queasy now. I find the exit door, force it open, triggering some sort of alarm, which I ignore, and jump to the ground, expecting to land in snow. But the air's warm and balmy against my skin. The trees still wear green leaves. How far south have we come in one day? I walk along the track, squinting against the bright sunlight, already regretting my words to Effie. She's hardly to blame for my current predicament. I should go back and apologize. My outburst was the height of bad manners, and manners mattered deeply to her. But my feet continue on along the track, past the end of the train, leaving it behind. An hour's delay. I can walk at least 20 minutes in one direction and make it back with plenty of time to spare. Instead, after a couple of 100 meters, I sink to the ground and sit there, looking into the distance. If I had a bow and arrows, would I just keep going? After a while, I hear footsteps behind me. It'll be Haymitch coming to chew me out. It's not like I don't deserve it, but I still don't want to hear it. I'm not in the mood for a lecture, I warn the clump of weeds by my shoes. I'll try to keep it brief. Peeta takes the seat beside me. I thought you were Haymitch, I say. No, he's still working on that muffin. I watch as Peeta positions his artificial leg. Bad day, huh? It's nothing, I say. He takes a deep breath. Look, Katniss, I've been wanting to talk to you about the way I acted on the train. I mean, the last train. The one that brought us home. I knew you had something with Gale. I was jealous of him before I even officially met you, and it wasn't fair to hold you to anything that happened in the games. I'm sorry. His apology takes me by surprise. It's true that Peeta froze me out after I confessed that my love for him during the games was something of an act, but I don't hold that against him. In the arena, I'd played that romance angle for all it was worth. There had been times where I didn't honestly know how I felt about him. I still don't really. I'm sorry too, I say. I'm not sure for what exactly. Maybe because there's a real chance I'm about to destroy him. There's nothing for you to be sorry about. You're just keeping us alive, but I don't want us to go on like this, ignoring each other in real life and falling into the snow every time there's a camera around. So I thought if I stopped being so, wounded, we could take a shot at just being friends, he says. All my friends are probably going to end up dead, but refusing Peeta wouldn't keep him safe. Okay, I say. His offer does make me feel better. less duplicitous somehow. It would be nice if he'd come to me with this earlier. Before I knew President Snow had other plans and just being friends was not an option for us anymore. But either way, I'm glad we're speaking again. So what's wrong? He asks. I can't tell him. Let's start with something more basic. Isn't it strange that I know you'd risk your life to save mine, but I don't know what your favorite color is? He says. A smile creeps onto my lips. Green. What's yours? Orange, he says. Orange? Like Effie's hair, I say. A bit more muted, he says, more like sunset. Sunset. I can see it immediately. The rim of the descending sun, the sky streaked with soft shades of orange. Beautiful. I remember the tiger lily cookie, and, now that Peeta is talking to me again, it's all I can do not to recount the whole story about President Snow. But I know Haymitch wouldn't want me to. I'd better stick to the small talk. You know, everyone's always raving about your paintings. I feel bad I haven't seen them, I say. Well, I've got a whole train car full. He rises and offers me his hand. Come on. It's good to feel his fingers entwined with mine again. Not for show, but in actual friendship. We walk back to the train hand in hand. At the door, I remember. I've got to apologize to Effie first. Don't be afraid to lay it on thick, Peeta tells me. So when we go back to the dining car where others are still at lunch, I give Effie an apology that I think is overkill, but in her mind probably just manages to compensate for my breach of etiquette. To her credit, Effie accepts graciously. She says it's clear I'm under a lot of pressure, and her comments about the necessity of someone attending to schedule only last about 5 minutes. Really, I've got off easily. When Effie finishes, Peeta leads me down a few cars to see his paintings. I don't know what I expected. Larger versions of the flower cookies, maybe. But this is something entirely different. Peeta has painted the games. Some you wouldn't get right away, if you hadn't been with him in the arena yourself. Water dripping through the cracks in our cave. The dry pond bed. A pair of hands, his own, digging for roots. Others any viewer would recognize. The golden horn called the cornucopia. Clover arranging knives inside her jacket. One of the mutts, unmistakably the blonde, green-eyed one, meant to be Glimmer, snarling as it makes its way towards us. And me. I'm everywhere. High up in a tree, beating a shirt against the stones in the stream, lying unconscious in a pool of blood. In one I can't place. Perhaps this is how I looked when his fever was high. Emerging from a silver-gray mist that matches my eyes exactly. What do you think? He asks. I hate them, I say.